Dan Mitchell's here now. Dan from the Center for Freedom and Prosperity, where he's chairman. As Greg said, the president did tweet about this reported buildup of Chinese troops near the border that he says he's been alerted to, but he hasn't said much more, hasn't taken sides in this outbreak of protests in Hong Kong. Do you feel as though he should have said or more than he said so far?
If China actually goes in militarily, then I think Trump and every other leader in the world, for that matter, should be very critical. But I actually give the president credit for being restrained because right now China probably is on a knife edge of intervening. And if Trump starts saying something, that could actually inadvertently push them into intervention just to show that they're not backing down to the U.S. or something like that. The reality is Hong Kong is a so-called special administrative region of China. They're not going to allow them to just arbitrarily secede. What we need to do, and what hopefully Trump can help with, is just getting China to stay away and let Hong Kong go back to the very successful, prosperous economy that it has been for the last 50 years.
All right, so that brings up the question about what China does next. So again, all these reports about whether the military will get involved. There's a tweet today that got a lot of attention from a person who's essentially a mouthpiece for the state media over there, and that's why this person's tweets are followed so closely, Hu Jijin. And the tweet was, "It's hoped Hong Kong can restore order by itself. That is the best end. If the development of the situation suggests there's no such hope, Beijing's intervention will be inevitable. It's a hard choice, but once it becomes a decision, it will be a firm one." Is it your sense that we're close, that tweets like that indicate we're close to that decision actually being made?
I don't know if it means we're close to the decision, but I definitely think it's accurate in that if somehow the Hong Kong authorities can't eventually stop the protest, China will go in. And whether it's another Tiananmen Square or not, I think that would be very, very bad for the future of Hong Kong. Investors are going to now subsequently would be very scared of having money in Hong Kong. It would put them, I think, on a downward trajectory. It wouldn't be good for China either, which is why the best thing we can hope for is somehow for this to get resolved peacefully, let Hong Kong go back to the way it was, have China stay out. The whole extradition bill that started this was probably a mistake.
And it's been tabled, it's been delayed. What would be a way to get it to be resolved peacefully? Just take that extradition bill off the table completely? It seems like these protesters have moved on to larger issues, talking about, democracy generally speaking in Hong Kong. And that is when it's not defined, like the extradition bill was something tangible that you could say, all right, this bill's out, now what? Where when you talk about larger issues like that, how do you come to a resolution that both sides could agree on? I mean, just hoping these young people go back to school doesn't seem like a strategy, although I've seen people speculating about that the last few days.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. The genie's out of the bottle, or whatever little metaphor you want to use. I don't think these protesters will be satisfied with simply taking the bill off the table and putting it in the garbage can. They now want something more. And the problem with that is the business community in Hong Kong isn't looking for democracy. They just want stability and free enterprise. So you're going to have divisions inside Hong Kong and then an angry China sitting just across the border. So it's very hard to see how this thing ends well at this stage. Maybe some face-saving move where the leadership in Hong Kong is rolled over for a new crowd, and you go back to the old policy, but who knows whether that can happen now.
The incentives are interesting, right? And make this your last point, Dan, because you brought that up. That China, in your view, and many others have this view, kind of needs Hong Kong. It needs the economic freedom associated with Hong Kong for its own purposes, right? Maybe that could be used to someone's advantage here.
Well, when Hong Kong first turned over from British to Chinese rule, the Hong Kong economy was, I think roughly 1/4 the size of the Chinese economy. Now, China has liberalized, and their economy is now a lot bigger relative to Hong Kong. But Hong Kong is still far richer on a per capita basis. Hong Kong is still a conduit for investment and economic activity into and out of China. So it would be bad for China to crack down on Hong Kong, and unquestionably, it would be bad for Hong Kong. And it's really a tragedy because for people like me, Hong Kong is one of the few sort of bright stories of the world where free markets have been allowed to flourish and people have gotten rich. I would hate to see that go away.
Right. Many people agree with you. They don't want to see that go away. Dan, good to see you today. Dan Mitchell.
Thank you.
Thanks.